Welcome back, everybody, to the Creativ Rise Podcast. We are so excited you're here joining us today. We've got an awesome episode that we're so excited to get into. But before that, Joey, we've had a busy couple weeks.
Yeah, it's been great.
Couple weeks.
So Mastermind ended.
Yep.
Which was epic. You're going to hear a little bit about a very, very cool stat from the Mastermind from one specific grad. Actually, the person on today's show, Owen Rossi. Dude's a legend. That wrapped up. We're actually building out, and we're just about to release this new free workshop for all grads of the Mastermind. So for the first time ever, all the alumni, actually the day after this podcast comes out, on Thursday, April 25th, we're doing an all alumni call for all 11 rounds, 300 plus people, creatives from all over the world, coming together for one big call to do a big workshop and hang out and meet each other for the first time. It's going to be great. So that ended. We're planning that.
And then
you had a big LaCroix campaign you shot last week.
Just had a huge shoot.
You shot photo for, I shot video for. You produced the whole campaign. It was really good. Great job on that. You already turned around the images too.
Yeah.
Guys, speaking about fast turnaround times, how many days is that? 2 days?
48 hours?
48 hours for an entire campaign to get turned around. That's pretty dang good. Pretty cool.
Pretty fast.
It's been great. So it's been a great week. Hope you've been having a great week. This episode's going to be awesome because we cover so many things. We cover what the new title, the new champion, the new record holder for the most amount of money ever made inside of the 6-week Creativ Rise Mastermind.
Woo-hoo.
Who that is, it's Owen, and what that is. We're going to tell you the amount as soon as we get into the episode. You're not going to want to miss a second of this episode. It just gets better and better and better throughout the whole show. We talked about retainers. We talked about one-offs, talked about changing your business model. We talked about pitching retainers, talked about following up. We talked about closing retainers, talked about problem solving. We talked about almost everything, time management. How do you actually get a ton of stuff done? How do you track who you've pitched to and who you've not, and who you should and who you follow up with? So many things. Like, we covered so many things on this episode. We're definitely going to get Owen back to talk more about the things he's learning as he's building his creative business. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm pumped.
Yeah, I'm pumped to listen to it. Here's Joey and Owen.
Owen, welcome to the show, brother. So good to have you on. This is a very exciting episode because we've got some super exciting things that we're going to talk through. And I'm putting words in your mouth, but as someone who's listened to the show and now you're on the podcast, welcome. Glad you're here, dude.
Thanks. Thank you for having me. First podcast, so I'm pumped.
First podcast ever. Your rookie season. I love it.
I know.
I love it. Your rookie
cool.
rookie appearance.
Yeah, it's cool because I've seen literally every single one of your podcasts, so to be on it is a cool moment. So thank you again for having me.
Yeah, man, of course. So real quick, you were in round 11 of the Creativ Rise Mastermind. You were one of 31 businesses in there. The story of what happened to your business inside of the Mastermind is really cool. We're going to debunk that a little bit. But the first thing I want to say is congratulations on officially holding the title for the Mastermind grad to have made the most money in the 6-week Creativ Rise Mastermind. I think I might have told you that, but you almost actually doubled the record, which is insane. Wow. So how does that feel?
It feels silly. Like, it doesn't even feel real. It's funny. It was like one of those things where I actually wasn't really, like, I was kind of tracking, but not super closely. And then before our last call, I was like, oh, I want to figure out how much I ended up making. And then, did the math and was like, oh, wow, that's insane. That's insane. Almost what I did last year. So yeah, it's super cool. And obviously could not have done that without you guys. Learned a ton of awesome stuff. So stoked to talk about it.
So you almost made what you made, give or take, what you made last year in 6 weeks. What did you make during the Creativ Rise Mastermind? Breakdown, what's the exact number?
Yeah, so in the whole duration of the Mastermind, I made about 76,000. But then actually the day after it technically ended, brought in 2 retainers. So if we're counting that last day where those 2 retainers came in, the total was 98,500, which is crazy to say out loud.
That's insane. Which is I already did the math. $16,416 a week over the 6-week period. That's wild. That's crazy. Yeah. Okay, so here's what I think people are thinking. That is a massive number. That doesn't even sound real. To be honest, that doesn't even sound real. So why don't you break that down a little bit for us? How does that number actually break down? When I hear $98,500 in 6 weeks, I go, what is he selling? And how does that break
Yeah.
down? So why don't you break it down for us?
Totally. Yeah. So, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is I did land my biggest ever deal in the 6 weeks, which obviously helped. So that one was about $47,000 for a really cool.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate it. For a really cool outdoor brand that I've wanted to work with for a while. And so that is a one-off, but like, and that's just for that one-off, but will hopefully turn into a retainer. So it's, God, I guess we'll call it a $47,000 test run, which is not
Yes.
bad. But yeah, I'm excited about that one. One, because again, like my biggest project that I've ever done, but also a brand that I love that I'm super pumped to work with. So that obviously helped. I'm trying to figure out how many were retainers versus one-offs. A lot of them were actually retainers that I got by offering, like sort of walking through my retainer packages and then offering test runs. And so some of those test runs into longer term deals, which is awesome and exactly what you want.
Yeah.
And then a few like smaller one-off projects here and there. So I'd say obviously that bigger project helped, the $47,000 one. And then most of them were honestly retainers, and then a few other small ones, which is cool because I came in like really wanting to do retainer work because prior to the mastermind, it was a lot of one-offs. So yeah, super pumped.
I love it. Okay, so talk to me about what's actually in a retainer, because you're saying a lot of these retainers are why you've been able to make a massive amount of money in the last 6 weeks. The question that I'm asking, that I think a lot of people would be, that are listening or are also asking, is what is actually inside of a retainer? How do you structure the offer? Let's talk specifically about offers, and how we describe offers, as you heard in the mastermind that you've adopted, is an offer is the value you're exchanging for the money you're getting. It's a value exchange. Here's what I'm giving, here's what I'm getting. So what are your retainers typically looking like for someone who's like, hey, I really want to get into retainers, or I've got some retainers right now, but I'm not making what Owen's making? Break that down.
Totally, yeah. So it's made up of a couple things. And I mean, the first mistake that I made was, I think, offering a little bit too much. Like I think prior to the mastermind, like I was offering like 30 or 40 images a month, and like, it's just a lot of photos, and like brands don't necessarily need all that. So, it's having sort of two options. One that is meant to actually, in your words, Joey, like address the problem, solve the problem. And then another one that's meant to like really smash the problem and be more of like a super solution as opposed to just a solution. So it's, X amount of photos, X amount of reels, and then speaking to what their desired outcome is. So like, on a discovery call, you kind of ask, like, what is your dream outcome here? Like, best case scenario, what does that look like? And trying to really appeal to that. So like photos, videos, because that's what Native Release specializes in. And then like X amount of calls that they can lean on you for if they have questions. And then also a big thing that I didn't do before was the time delay. So like the turnaround time, how fast are you turning around that content? And so I think that's also been a huge thing, is like being like, hey, we can turn this around really quickly when maybe there's other creatives that can't. So I think that's a unique thing to bring to the table too.
I love that. So a couple of things I want to point out that you said about retainers is you talked, I've got 2 packages where a lot of people will offer a ton of packages, and we've now both come to discover through our careers that the more you can simplify to basically 2 options, you're really going to help somebody make an effective decision, right? One of the worst things we can do as creatives is actually position the people we're trying to sell something to, position things out them where they just can't make a decision. They get decision fatigue because there's like, oh, and you just gave me 8 options. I don't know which one I should choose, right? So you're saying, for my retainers, I pick 2 options. And then secondly, what I heard you say is you give them, the first option is like the all-in-one solution to their problem. And then you said the second option is actually like a super solution. And what I think is cool about that is a lot of people will go, oh, the package I want to sell is, call it $2,500 or $3,000 a month, and that's for the solution. And then I'll sell a little cheaper option that's not really going to solve the problem, but if they don't have the budget, they can work with me here. Where you're doing the opposite. You're going, I'm focusing on fully solving the problem or solving the problem with a ton of extra super solution stuff. So why do you decide to do that versus doing like a cheaper, smaller option that doesn't really do anything, but it's what most creatives do?
Totally. Yeah. I think the biggest reason is that I do it is to show them that the more cost-effective option, or the smaller one, we'll call it, actually solves their problem. I think like it has to actually solve the problem, if they look at it and they're like, oh, this doesn't really do anything, and then they're like, okay, but this other project or this other package is very expensive, they're like, well, we're not really getting the problem solved, and this one costs a lot. And I think it's hard for them to make a decision. So I think it's important that that first package actually solves their problem, and then the second one goes above and beyond. And it's important to show them that just by jumping on a call and walking them through your packages. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it's perfect. Absolutely, man. I think it's brilliant. Okay, I need to put a pause on the retainer conversation for 1 second because I totally forgot to do our typical intro, which you would know because you've listened to the show a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna hit you with a couple rapid fires quickly, and then we're gonna get back into the retainer stuff because I want people to
Cool.
make sure that they know everything about you that we get in rapid fire. Okay, so quick, name, where you're from, and if you're stuck in an elevator with somebody and they ask you, what do you say?
Totally. So name, Owen Rossi. Originally from Washington, D.C., although I live in Missoula, Montana now. So big difference, big change, but I love it out here. So wouldn't want to be anywhere else. And then if I'm in an elevator and someone asks what I do, I would say I run a creative media agency called Native Release that creates photo and video content for outdoor brands. You know, we believe that you deserve content that converts in a stress-free way. So that's our goal, and we try and do that for you.
I love it. And then how long you been in business for with Native Release?
Yeah, about 3.5 years. Although I had been like shooting before that just for fun, so I had a little bit of background. But yeah, total time with Native Release as an agency, like 3 years. We were actually a clothing brand before in college, and just like sold shirts and hats to our buddies, which was fun. So
Hey, that's how everything starts. Someone designs a logo somewhere, and all of a sudden it's on shirts, and next thing you know, it's somebody's career. I love it. All right, and then it's the signature question, Christy's favorite question, probably my favorite question as well. I'm sure you know it's coming. What's the biggest or a big flop that you've had in your business that just will humanize the fact that 6 weeks ago, over the last 6 weeks, you've made basically $100,000 in 6 weeks? Give us something that's going to humanize you a little bit.
There's literally so many. The one that comes to mind, and my parents will love this one, is they actually came out, and this wasn't like a commercial shoot. This was just like going to be a fun photo opportunity, but a huge flop. They came out to do a backpacking trip with me in Montana. Came out from DC, like super pumped. This trip had been planned for like months, and we wake up in the morning to drive into the national park where we're doing this hike, and it was super early in the morning. I left my camera on top of my truck, drove away. Like, we get to the trailhead, and it's hard to find a parking spot. Like, it's peak summer. The park's really busy. We managed to find a parking spot. We're about to start the hike, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I don't have my camera. Like, tear the truck apart. It's not there. So then we drove back to the Airbnb, and my parents are great sports for this. Drove back, and we see this black thing in the middle of the road, and we thought it was like bear scat or something, and we get closer. I'm like, that's my camera. Pick it up. Totaled, destroyed, like, absolutely ruined. Like, it's gone. So, you know, definitely a flop there, but also kind of a win in the sense that, like, I got to do this awesome hike with my parents and be super present and not worry about taking photos. And so, like, that's the silver lining.
Yes.
That's how I make myself feel better about the big flop. So
Dude, that's classic. That's happened to a lot of people. The camera, the camera bag, or even the phone, like putting the phone on the top of the car.
Yes, I've had the phone.
Yeah, we did.
Too.
I can't remember what the exact story is. I won't fully tell it, but we put something on the top of our car like that. And I think we drove for like 45 minutes and realized it was up there and pulled over and it's still there, or realized we had left it there. I cannot remember what happened, but it's in the back of my brain. I'm like, I think that happened to Christy and I, but that is a horrible feeling. Horrible feeling. So what else is a horrible feeling is when, again, your business is so bottlenecked because all you're ever doing is one-offs. So let's get back to the conversation of retainers. How's that for a transition? So, okay, we just talked about how you structure your retainer packages, Owen. I think what a lot of people are going to be asking now is, you mentioned test run. Talk to me about what a test run is Talk to me about what a test run is as it relates to getting a retainer, getting someone locked in to work with your agency, work with you guys doing video or photo for 3 months, 6 months. How does a test run work? What is it? And why do you utilize them?
Totally. Yeah. So a test run is basically, just for a little bit of context, like we offer 3, 6, or 12-month terms with all of our retainers. And Chrissy has a great saying is like, retainers can be a lot like a marriage, right? Like you don't want to jump in and marry someone first, right? You want to go on a first date and go from there. So for me, like that's great. And that's exactly what a test run is, right? It's, hey, our minimum is 3 months here, but like I totally get, we've never worked together. We just met on this call. Like that's a lot to ask. Let's do a test run first, see how things go. Assuming you love it, which I know you will, we'll jump into a 3-month. But if for whatever reason you're not stoked on it, like we'll cut ties, no hard feelings, and you're not locked into those other 2 months. And so I think it takes a lot of the pressure off of the brand and, almost makes it kind of like a no-brainer for them. And so like that's been huge. I mean, like I was not locking in a lot of retainers before the mastermind, and the test run thing has helped me so much. Almost like get my foot in the door and show the value, and then, again, have it hopefully turn into a longer term deal.
Yeah. So test runs help you get your foot in the door, as you just said. And what I like about that is you also alluded to this earlier in the podcast. It allows you to prove to somebody that you're actually giving them a solution to their problem. So Owen, talk to me for a second about your worldview now that you have. That I think we somewhat helped shape through the mastermind, because I know we really, really push into this. But the worldview of I'm not a creative, I'm not just a filmmaker, I'm not just a photographer, I'm not just some dude who loves wearing Seeger hats from Montana. I am actually a problem solver, right? Talk to me about what that means to you and explain it, and then talk about how that's beneficial to you getting these test runs and just getting deals in general.
Totally. Yeah. So before the mastermind, it was very much like I was going to these brands, and I think a lot of creatives do this, and just pitching my solution like, oh, we can give you these great photos and keep your content pipeline stocked up and all this stuff, and which is great, and that's super valuable. What I wasn't doing is calling out their problem first, right? And giving someone a solution to a problem they don't know they have is tricky. So one thing we learned in the mastermind was to be a problem solver and to first call out the problem, to make it aware to them, and then come to the table with the solution. And like still blown away at the difference that has made. And it's like such a minor thing, it seems like, but like making that change has been absolutely huge. I even had a client, like we jumped on a call and I came into the call with a few problems and a few solutions, and they were super pumped on it. And we're like, oh, you sparked so much debate in the office just because you came to the table with a problem and all these solutions. And now we've like been talking about it for the last week, and everyone's super pumped about it. So it's just cool, like that little tweak of calling out the problem has made just an absolute world of difference. So yeah, super cool.
Super cool. Okay, so you're talking about how problem solving is helping externally. It's helping the client understand that working with you would be a great thing. How has that helped you? Like, has it given you more confidence going into sales calls? Has it given you more confidence in writing pitches? Has it helped you write more pitches? Like, break all that down. Has it helped you internally as well?
Totally. Yeah, I will. Okay, to your first point about confidence, like just for context, like I would shoot companies emails even like, weeks, like a week before the mastermind started, shoot emails over, and these clients wouldn't respond and they wouldn't be interested, or if they responded, they would turn me down. And then I would circle back a few weeks later with like, hey, here's the problem and here's the solution and this is how we can help you. And they're like, oh, this is great. And they're booking calls. And so from a confidence standpoint, like totally has up the confidence in that regard. Sorry, what was the other part of your question?
Yeah, so with confidence and like with pitching and with even getting up on the calls and actually like, hey, here's meeting a client face-to-face on Zoom or whatever, Google Meet. Does that also give you a ton of confidence in that scenario? Because I know a lot of creatives, and even me earlier in my career, that's a really hard thing to do, is show up on a call or show up in an email thread and just really confidently proclaim how your solution is a solution. So does that really help that?
Totally. Yeah. And yeah, on calls, 100% too, almost because it feels like there's more when you come into the call with problems and solutions. It gives you a better chance of being able to really wow the client. Honestly, like there's more to talk about. There's more that you can, like it ups the chances that they're going to be like, oh my gosh, this guy really did his homework. Like I had a call today that went really, really well. And pretty much the whole call was like, got to know the person, sort of made small talk a little bit. And then immediately like, hey, you guys are crushing it on social media. I love your stuff. I think we can improve on this area, and this area. And here's how we're going to do it. And also I think speaking, you want to address the problem, but also speaking to like what happens if the problem doesn't get solved. So the stakes. So like that that double part of like problem and stakes has been huge too, because it, they're like, oh, we need to fix this or this is going to happen. And so, yeah, it's given me a lot of confidence in email threads, on calls, and the calls have just been going like way better than they were in the past. So yeah, super cool.
Good, man. I love that. So, let's talk about how you actually find problems, because there's probably people listening to the show being like, Owen is super well spoken. He sounds like he really knows his stuff. He sounds like he's confident to show up and tell somebody on a call what their problems are. But how would I actually figure that out? Like, how would I discover what a brand's problems are? So in order for a creative to actually learn how to be a problem solver, what do they do? What's maybe a step or the first couple steps that you do when you are looking to address a client's problems prior to getting on a sales call or prior to pitching them?
Totally. So this takes a lot more time, but it's totally worth it. So I'll honestly just scroll their Instagram and be like, okay, and sort of think like, okay, where are the problems? And definitely harder to find problems for some companies than others, because some companies are crushing it and doing an awesome job. But yeah, like jumping on Instagram and scrolling through and being like, okay, like where are the problems? Like, is there a lot of Reels content? How often are they posting? How is their engagement? Another actually super helpful thing that I've been doing is I'll go, especially if it's a company that's really like seemingly doing an awesome job, is I'll jump on their Reels page and I'll be like, okay, which one is the top performer? I'll find that. And then I'll be like, okay, how many more Reels are like this one? Because clearly this is working. So if there's only one reel that has, whatever, a bajillion views and none of the others do, and it's the only reel of its kind, that is a problem. It's like, hey, you guys are, and so in an email, right, I'll write something and be like, hey, you guys are doing an awesome job. Like, this reel is clearly performing really well. However, it's the only one of its kind. I'd love to lean into this a little more and just get your Instagram account or social media more engagement by replicating this reel that's clearly working for you. So yeah, just taking the time to like scroll their social and look and find the problems.
Yeah, so good. Actually doing a little bit of homework, right? Gives you ammo. I use the word ammo a lot in the mastermind.
Yep.
Saying it gives you ammo for sales, right? It allows you to go into a conversation and actually have context, which is so important, because the number one thing is going to make you not get an answer back, as you've learned, as I've learned, is not having any context in there. Your email just looks like every other email they get from a brand, right? Okay, so let's talk about pitching, Owen, because you are a pitching machine, hence why you've been able to land so many retainers. And you seem to have a very good process of figuring out who you want to pitch all the way to all of a sudden they become a client of yours and they're on a test run. Fill me in on what that journey actually looks like. I'm assuming it's a little bit like you find them, which we use the language in the mastermind. You create a hit list, right? You find the people you want to pitch, and then you probably send them, you engage them a little bit probably, and then you're sending them some type of email or proposal, and then you're trying to get them on a call, then you're getting them on a test run, signing a contract. Did I kind of cover it, or am I missing anything? And then break that down.
No, I mean, that's pretty spot on. I guess like some people have asked like, oh, how do you find these brands? And we had talked a little bit about running ads, but I don't do that. I just, again, like take the time to scroll Instagram and be like, okay, where are some cool brands that I want to work with? And I've got a big spreadsheet and, just sort of work my way down. But yeah, that was awesome what you hit on there. Like before I'll even send a cold email, it's a lot of like engaging with them on social and just trying to build that familiarity of showing up in their inbox, liking their photos, like sort of creating like that background noise of like, oh, who is native release? Like they keep showing up. So like doing that and then a cold email or a warm email, and then staying on them, because like there's definitely a lot of brands that don't respond, and the follow-up is really important. And I think about like all of my favorite brands we've ever worked with. It's never like, cold email and then they're like, okay, let's do it. In some circumstances, it's like 6 follow-up emails and just continuing to like send them new ideas and show like, I really want to work with you guys. So yeah, the follow-up's really important. And then discovery call, get to know them, figure out or come into that call with problems and solutions, see if it's a good fit. And then move forward, hopefully sign a contract and work together. So yeah, you pretty much hit the sales process really well there.
I love it. Okay, so many people actually stunt themselves from pitching and going out and trying to pitch. You said that you've got a whole spreadsheet of people you pitch and you just work your way through there. A lot of creatives might only pitch one brand every month because they're like, it's difficult, it's very time consuming. What does your actual initial pitch look like? How complex is it? what are a few things that you hit on in that initial pitch? Are you
Yeah.
sending a massive email with a huge customized proposal that's you did in Canva or Illustrator or Tome, or are you just like, here it is, here's a quick idea, here's a little bit about us, let's jump on a call? Where do you fall on that spectrum? And have you always done that, or has that recently shifted? And how have you seen the results change because of that?
For sure. Yeah, great question. So first, like before I did the mastermind, it was, I mean, every email had a proposal at the bottom. And, I would tweak it a little bit, but for the most part, like I would send a similar proposal to a bunch of different brands. And like that got very tiring. Like I didn't get burnt out, but I was close, and it was very time consuming and, not ideal. So in the beginning I did that, kind of calling out the solution. Here's a proposal. And these proposals were always like trips, like, oh, we're going to the desert to shoot this thing, or, oh, we're going to the mountains to shoot a camping thing. It was always like positioned as like a trip. Now what I do, one of the reasons I have shifted it is because, a lot of these brand managers get proposals every single day, multiple proposals every single day. And looking through all of those is time consuming for them. And so a lot of them don't want to do it. So what I do now is actually a much shorter version of what I did in the beginning. There's no proposal attached to the bottom, but there's like a pitch, right? And the pitch is, hey, like, first off, you want to make it personal. Like, my name's Owen, I run Native Release, this is what we do. Then into that, problems and stakes, like, hey, you guys are doing an awesome job on social. I noticed you don't have a ton of Reels content or lifestyle photo content or whatever it may be. A lack of Reels content is going to affect your reach, which is going to affect your sales, and we don't want that. So here's a few ideas that I have that I think would help, up your sales and up your engagement. And I'll literally hyperlink Reels from their competitors in there so they can see like, oh, wow, our competitors are doing this. I'll link it through an Instagram page, and they'll see like, oh, wow, this video is also getting a ton of engagement. So that's super cool. And then before I kind of do my signature at the bottom, I'll do a little case study. So like, hey, we helped, X brand achieve, X results with one of our Reels campaigns. We'd love to do the same for you. And then call to action, like click here to book a call. And that's much shorter, and it's much more digestible for the manager or whoever's reading it. So yeah, that's worked a lot better.
Yeah, so good. Simple and scalable, because you've obviously found a formula for you that is simple enough that you're able to make it really repeatable. Therefore, you can scale the amount of pitches you can send. But at the same time, you are taking into consideration, as you said, with these brand managers, they don't want to look through this massive, long pitch, especially if it's not like the most interesting thing they've seen in 10 years, right? So unless you have some crazy idea, like, hey, I'm going to the moon, and I want to take your product, like, it can probably be short and sweet and just hit them really, really clearly and simply. And then you also stated on this earlier, and talk to me about follow-ups. So maybe we even pivot right now into your biggest deal ever. $47,000 came a couple weeks ago while you were in the mastermind. Incredible achievement. One deal, $47,000. And you told me it's because you followed up a bunch. Tell the story. How did that all unfold?
Yeah. I mean, I had basically been following up with this specific brand for like, 4 years, like a long time. And they're important because people forget, right? Like you'll shoot an email over, and very easily that can get buried, right? Like the weekend happens and they get a bunch of other spam or a bunch of other emails, and they don't see your initial message. So again, like similar to the engagement on Instagram, like following up just builds that familiarity, and you sort of stay in front of the client, which is really important. Because again, these guys have so much going on, and they're busy, and so it's important for you to take the initiative and stay in front of them. So yeah, that particular deal came from like a few years of follow-ups, and not even like I was pitching anything super specific, just like, hey, like we're thinking about you guys, like your most recent social post was awesome, like we'd love to work together, like definitely keep us in the loop. Like something like as basic as that to just stay in front of the client is huge. And I mean, the other thing I'll say is like getting a deal like that after years of follow-up feels so good, because it's like, I don't know, it's like I did that. Like I stayed in front of them, and in the moment when you're sending these follow-ups, it's like, is anything going to happen? Like probably not, but like when something does happen, it's really cool and super rewarding. So yeah, definitely follow up, because it's very important.
Yeah, so good, dude. I love that. I love how you said it doesn't have to be complex. It can be as simple as just
Yeah.
saying, hey, thinking about you guys, here's one thing I love that you guys did recently. Here's an idea. Or, hey, you should think
Yeah.
about us for your next job, right? It doesn't have to be complex. And it's so true. I have emails right now or even texts in my inbox that I saw this morning. I'm like, oh gosh, I got to get to that. But I
Yeah.
saw it yesterday. I started to respond to it yesterday, and then something happened. And then it's like, oh my gosh, now the whole day's gone by. It's now 1:35 p.m. here, and I still haven't gotten back to it because
Yeah.
life just happens, right? So it's so
Totally.
important that we as creatives follow up with people, as you said, because it's not always that they're intentionally trying to not give you an answer and ghost you. Sometimes life just happens, right? Or the
Totally.
weekend happens, as you said, and all of a sudden the Monday emails come in and they're so busy. So
Yeah.
I love that. How do you track follow-ups? Because I think a lot of creatives go, well, I don't even know how I would follow up because I don't know who I pitched. So how do you track who you pitched, and then how do you track who you followed up with? And I guess
Totally.
that also goes hand in hand with like, how are you tracking who you're pitching, and then keeping track of like, have you followed up with them yet? And then the second part of this that I want you to answer is like, when do you decide that you've tracked it enough, you followed up enough, and it's just not worth it anymore?
Yeah, that last part is such a good question. I'm still honestly figuring that last part out a little bit. But yeah, to answer the first question, so I'm very old fashioned, by the way. Like, I'm a creature of habit, so I'm sure there's more effective ways to do this. I just have a giant spreadsheet, and I stay really on top of it because I know if I don't, like, something's gonna fall through the cracks, and that's enough to keep me like motivated to actually track it. So yeah, so I have an Excel spreadsheet where like one column will be company name, the second column will be like when my first outreach message was, the third column is when to follow up, which usually is, it depends. If they turn down a project, I'll follow up in 3 months, but if they just don't respond, it's like, basically 6 to 7 days. And then I have the marketing manager's name and then email. I also have HubSpot, which I use a little bit, but I'm just, I'm so used to just tracking it through the spreadsheet that I do that. Again, probably more effective ways to do that, but it's, it works for me.
Yeah.
What was the second part of that question again?
And when do you know that it's time to stop following up with somebody?
Yeah. So that's such a good question. I will usually do 3 or 4 follow-ups and then give it a rest. That said, though, like, you guys shared a story about someone that followed up a bunch of times, but right, the key piece of that is with different opportunities. Like,
Yeah.
and I think you or Christy said this. It's like, you don't have to feel weird following up when you're trying to help them. You're trying to give them value. You're trying to make that business more money. So like, why would you feel weird trying to do that? And the answer is you shouldn't. But like that said, after 3 or 4 follow-ups for like the same project, it's like, okay, now it's time to sort of come up with new ideas, new problems, new solutions, and try and help them in other areas. And chances are, if you keep at it and you just keep hitting them up, like something's going to go through. And then you work together, you crush it, you got your foot in the door. And now hopefully that's a long-term client. So follow-ups are very important.
Yeah, that's so good. So you just talked about how you tracked them. I think my next question then would be, based on what I think people would probably be assuming, is like, okay, Owen, how do you do all this? You just had a massive income spike. You're pitching people, you're getting on calls, you're closing retainers, you're doing test runs, you're following up with people. How do you actually plan your day? You said you're a creature of habit. So are you really like rhythmic, or are you kind of spontaneous? What does that look like for you? Because a lot of creatives struggle with, how do I actually plan my day? Somebody actually messaged me this morning saying, I just don't feel like I'm being effective with my time at all. Do you have any tips for me? Because I feel like I'm falling behind on the things I know I want to do. What do you do?
Totally. Yeah, that's a great question. And I remember like when I first started Native Release, like sitting down at my desk in my childhood bedroom and being like, what do I do now? Like where do I start? I mean, it's very overwhelming, and I totally get it. I actually got great advice from a few entrepreneurs that also went to my high school that they all sort of said the same thing, which was funny. They're like, this is going to sound crazy. Plan your day out in 30-minute increments. Like, just to be super like mindful of like how you spend each 30 minutes. And like in doing that, after, a month or so, like it'll just be second nature. And so that worked really well. And so now like my sort of day to day looks like I wake up, I'll have coffee, write in my journal, something like that. And then go right into cold outreach. And basically from like 7 or 8 in the morning to like noon, it's just all cold outreach. And I like every single day starts like that, and it just feels so natural. Now, like sometimes like there's interruptions and stuff like that. Like if I have calls, that'll get interrupted. But usually, yeah, it's like 7, 8 in the morning to noon. It's all cold outreach. The green zone, which we talked about a little bit in Mastermind. Then sort of after that, it's like I'll have breakfast / lunch. Then go into work that's like a little bit easier, like whether that's like editing or even calls or just something that's like less time consuming. And then I'll do that till about like 5 or 6-ish. And then 5 to 6, it's like me time. I'll go fishing, I'll go hiking. I just like want to get away from my computer so I can recharge the next day. So yeah, that's pretty much my day to day.
Yeah, I love it. So you are rhythmic. You're rhythmic, which I think is important because routine is something that I know I've struggled with in my own career because I'm pretty spontaneous. I got a ton of ADHD. It's so easy for me to not do the 30-minute thing and be like, oh, it's, it's 3:00 in the afternoon. What have I done today? So an encouragement for everybody listening to the show, like try and build some rhythms into your workday, the same way that we want to build rhythms into our fitness journeys or our health journeys, our relational journeys, whatever it's going to be. Build some rhythms. Dude, I love that. Okay, we've covered big deals. We've covered retainers. We've covered pitching them. We've covered following up with them. We've covered how you actually get all of this stuff done. Why don't you talk to me a little bit about where you were coming into the mastermind? And obviously we've talked about where you are now, but what are some of the things that you found the mastermind to be, whether they were helpful for you or maybe they were not helpful for you, but break it down. What was your experience like? Yeah,
totally. Just on the last point, like you kind of asked like, oh, how do you like manage all of this? I also have contractors that like shout out to every single one of those dudes. Cause like I could not do any of this without them. Like I do a lot of the business side now and I still shoot a little bit, but like I fall back on these contractors that are so talented and like awesome guys. And so, yeah, shout out to those guys. Cause again, none of this would be possible without them.
Yeah. Love it.
Oh, totally. About kind of where I was before the mastermind, a ton of one-off work, a ton of like constantly reinventing the wheel, doing these trips, shooting, which was fun, but like, I mean, it was a lot. And to get a deal, any deal I got, it took building a proposal, jumping on calls, driving out to like wherever the shoot was, which sometimes was like hours away or even like a flight away, to do the shoot. And, I was having the time of my life, but also like, I was like, there's gotta be a more effective way to do this. And so that's what my goal was going into the mastermind, was lock in some retainers, lock in some recurring work that takes, frankly, like a little bit less work to get, if that makes sense. It's still a lot of effort and a lot of work, but it's more manageable. So yeah, I just wanted to lock in more recurring work. And then leaving the mastermind, I mean, I locked down 6 retainers in the mastermind, just from the stuff we learned. So like
Crazy.
Very much want to be, and actually one of the coolest things was like when I had a client, I tried to get a retainer with like a day before the mastermind. They told me no. And they also told me like, our budget, by the way, for photo and video, like is this. And then I circled back with, the new stuff that you taught us and got them on a call. And they actually like moved on a retainer deal for something that was $1,000 over what they said their budget was. I think that, and that was pretty early on in the mastermind. That was the point where I was like, oh yeah, this is legit. This is like really helpful and useful. So yeah, that was super cool to see.
What do you think it was that you actually went back to them with that caused them to want to get on a call and then caused them to obviously up the budget and actually work with you? Like, what about what we taught you? What was the thing that you think helped?
Totally. So it was actually a few things. The first was, and we touched on this, but like calling out their problem, right? I went to their Instagram. I was like, hey, you guys are doing a great job, but you're kind of missing the mark here and here. I think we can really help you with that. So that was huge for sure. The second thing was dialing in my offers. So like the first opportunity I went to them with, it was like 3 packages, deliverables were just all over the place. No real like structure to it. And then when I circled back, it was now 2 options, much more structured. I think they could really see the value more. And even like little things, right? Like, you know, I dropped in the group chat, there were these 2 packages, and the smaller one was first and the bigger one was second. And you were like, hey, put the bigger one first and then the smaller package second. And like, even that like little tweak helped, because I had another client that turned me down, and this could again just be coincidence, but I had another client turn me down because I had like, you know, they weren't interested, but with that package, the smaller one was first. This one, the bigger one was first, and they went with it. And that was the package that was $1,000 over what their budget was. So that, and then the last piece of that is we were sort of taught like, don't sell deliverables, sell solutions. So like, instead of putting like 10 photos, and which is a deliverable, put 10 photos to fill your social media calendar, and like tie that deliverable to their desired outcome. So yeah, I think those 3 things were huge, but yeah, I mean, total game changer. It was cool to see that.
I love it, man. I love it. Well, it sounds like the ROI was there for you.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would. It was cool. I was like on the fence in the beginning, just cause like we didn't touch on this, but I proposed to my girlfriend in the 6 weeks. So it was
amazing. Another huge win.
It was the best 6 weeks I have ever had in my life. So we'll put that out there. But yeah, I was on the fence because I was like, oh, I bought this ring and was nervous about it. And like, yeah, it's like everything turned out totally fine. So
amazing. Well, dude, you've been putting in the work. Super proud of you. Thanks for being on the show today. This has been awesome. This has been a great conversation. Covered so much. This is also me putting on the record. We're gonna get you back on the show because I cannot wait to hear an update from you. Come, you know, a couple months from now, maybe even just in the fall, with new things you've learned, new wins, all of that. So excited to continue to, you know, cheer for you, be in your corner. Thanks for being on the show. The last question we ask everybody is, why is all of this worth it? Why is pitching from 7:30 to 12 every day worth it? Like tracking things in spreadsheets. Why is this worth it? Why is it worth it for someone to actually put in the work to break the creative struggle in their own lives? From your opinion, what is it?
Totally. I think, you know, the word that comes to mind is freedom. Like when you have your own business and you have a structure and you're doing all these things like the spreadsheets and the following up and whatever it might be, like it's hard in the moment, but like that work up front is what's going to give you that freedom, the next like 2, 3, 4, 5 years. I mean, the other thing, like for me personally, is like it's worth it because like I love it. Like I am so obsessed with building my business and like helping other people too. Like, you know, these businesses, their goal is to make money, and so like I want to help them do that. And you know, all my clients, it's like we're homies, like we're close, and like I love the relationship things too. So, yeah, I mean, anyone that's like on the fence about, you know, doing freelance or doing their own business and like leaving the 9-to-5 thing, I mean, I'd encourage it because it's awesome. It's really awesome.
So good, bro. I love it. Well, thanks for being on the show, dude. We'll get you back on.
Yeah, thank you for having me, man. I appreciate it.
So that was a phenomenal conversation with Owen. So fun. We stopped recording and I just looked at him. I was like, dude, that was awesome. And he was like, dude, that was awesome. That was so fun. So what a great episode. I hope you loved that. Make sure you share it with a friend. Tag us on Instagram so we can see it. We can connect with you. We can also thank you for sharing the show. And also tag Owen at Native Release Online. Go to the description. You'll find all the links there.
Yeah.
Everything.
And if you're interested in the experience that Owen went through in the 6-week Creativ Rise Mastermind, I got good news for you. The next one is coming fall of 2024. So if you want to be in the 6-week mastermind, if you want to be an alum that can go to workshops and all of that kind of stuff, be a part of the Creative Guys community.
Most importantly, grow your business.
and grow your business in a huge way, because we literally exist here at Creativ Rise to help creatives succeed at doing what they love. If you want to be a part of something like that, all you got to do is go to creativrise.com, or in the show notes, you can jump on that wait list. It's a no commitment, totally free wait list. Jump on it. You're just going to get a little bit of information about when that next mastermind is dropping. And then you'll also be the first ones to be able to get an application, early access, early pricing, all of that good stuff. So make sure you jump on that wait list in order to get into the next one. But you guys, thanks for listening to this episode. Thank you, Owen, for being an awesome part of the last 6 weeks. You're incredible. And we're all so inspired by what you did.
Dude's a killer.
Yeah.
I hope you enjoyed this episode, guys. Go put in the work. Owen's put in the work, and his business is benefiting it because he's obviously put in the work. So make sure you replicate that. Get rhythmic, as Owen talked about. Put in the work, and you as well, if you follow the things we talked about in today's show and all the other podcasts. It's not a coincidence. Owen said, I've listened to literally every podcast. I've watched them all. And now he's on the podcast because his business has grown so much. So make sure you actually take this stuff seriously. But most importantly, you don't just listen, you actually implement it. Okay. Implement what we're talking about, and you too will grow your business. So we'll see you next week. Can't wait to see you next week from Christy and I and the rest of the team here at Creativ Rise that makes this whole thing happen. See you then.